the start screen, which is where we're at now. Okay, cool. So what we'll do is once the stuff starts, we'll just jump onto the main screen and we'll get right into it, man. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming out. Yeah, man. And I'm glad I reached out to you because you're doing something really that I kind of, I really want to do, man. I mean, of course, you're in PT school, but you're a third year. I'm a first year. You're running a business while you're doing it, and I don't know the level of it, but we'll talk about that, even if it's just, extra, whatever. I know the full load of PT, but still, I think a lot of people get into this mindset to where, once they start school, it's like school, and, you gotta be broke and you gotta, absolutely at. So I am excited for this because it's I think part of it is people getting trained to just kind of work, part of it, so it's partly thinking, because even sometimes school, it's like if you're not doing that 9 to 5, you ain't you're not doing it, so. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of people come into PTschool doing, man. Study, then you're broke and you don't have any money, so that's kind of stressful. Right. So that mindset is something that, man, I think we really need to kind of really just change. And even I'm working on changing my mindset, man. I'm not going to act like I'm there, but I knew that coming into PT school, and that's why I'm so, I really have tried to be pushed to be consistent with this. I'm like, I got to make sure I'm on my stuff, so I'm not out here kind of just falling into that rat race that I'm trying to avoid, you know what I'm saying? Let me just look at the focus really quick, and then once I do that, we'll just go ahead and start. Okay, cool. Everything is set. Looks good. All right. And then just really quick, how do you pronounce your last name? Hamidi. Okay. I just don't want to butcher it on live air. So good. Hamidi. Sounds good. Okay. Okay, good. All right. Hello, everybody. We are live. This is episode 13 of the DPT Talk. Today we have a very special guest with us, Kevin. I'm gonna let him introduce himself and just tell you guys a little bit about himself, and we're just gonna kind of get right into this interview. And I'm excited about this one because, Kevin has that entrepreneurial spirit, which I feel lives inside of me, and which I believe should live inside of most people who want to have more control of their time, which ultimately leads to a sense of freedom. So without further ado, I'm going to let Kevin take it away. Just tell us his name, of course, his full name, his where he attends school, and, just where he's from, his age, and just, something interesting about himself before we started this conversation.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on, bro. My name's Kevin Hamidi. I'm a third-year PT student currently at Western Michigan University. I'll actually be graduating in a few months in December, so almost done PT school here. I run an online fitness coaching business called PT Systems. It's a business where we help busy professionals focus on losing muscle and gaining fat so they can attain the body of their dreams, live their best life, even regardless of any injuries that they're dealing with, while also not being on a restrictive diet. That is what I do with the business that I run alongside being in PT school, currently 23 years old. And that is me in a nutshell right there.
Wow, 23 years old and doing that. That's crazy, man. So what got you into, first of all, being interested in physical therapy, and then also you're 23 and you are a third year PT
Yeah.
student. Tell us how that worked. We'll do the math for
So
us on now.
yeah, so I first got interested in PT, or like wanted to actually pursue it. Actually came back from my background in like martial arts. So I started martial arts when I was 4 years old, and when I was going through martial arts as a kid, my martial arts instructor at the time was going through some intensive rehab for his ankle at the time. And as a kid, I used to see it. I see him come in from PT and like talk about it. And he was always just so positive about the therapists he worked with and everything. And it was always in the back of my mind that that was something. I never really knew what to do with it, but it was just always in the back of my mind. And as I grew up, I eventually was like, okay, I need to do something. I need to figure out what I want to do. I got this passion for like health and fitness when I started undergrad. I always had that passion from like martial arts, but got into gym when I started undergrad, got like a physical transformation myself, really fell in love with the weight room, with training, with empowering others through personal training, and wanted to figure out something I could do with it. And that was when I was talking to my martial arts instructor, he was like, hey, like you should check out, PT and like go shadow some of the therapists I know. Like I think this would be right up your alley with like what you're interested in. And long story short, went and observed, shadowed, really fell in love with it from that standpoint, especially in the sports sector of things. And from there, the rest is history. And that's kind of what sparked my passion for wanting to pursue and get into PT school. And yeah, I'm a third year student at 23 because one, my program is a 2.5 year program. So technically I'm a third year, but when I finish school, it will only be 2.5 years, not 3 full years. And then I also Emma was like the earliest, like I am the youngest person in every single class that I've ever been in. I just started school a year earlier than most people, just way back from elementary school.
Okay.
So because of that, I've just always been the youngest person in every class, and I'm currently the youngest person in my PT cohort right now. So
Nice.
there's that.
Yeah, man. Most people are, trying to get their lives together at 23, and if not that, they're starting to
Yeah.
apply at 23. Um,
Yeah.
so that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So martial arts, I'm interested because as of probably 2018, 2019, I really got into MMA, the UFC, and I actually started training jiu-jitsu myself on and off for about 2 years, because I've been moving around so much for these past 3 years. I'm looking for a new gym in Michigan. However, what kind of martial arts are you doing?
Yeah, so when I started, I when I was 4, I started in what's called Shotokan karate. It's a Japanese style of karate. I started that the entire time up until now. But once I was around 10 years old or so, that's when I started dabbling in like other martial arts alongside of that. So when I was like around 10, 11, that's when I also got introduced to, the world of like jujitsu and like judo. So I started practicing like Brazilian jiu-jitsu when I was like around 10, 11, alongside of what I was doing with karate. Started incorporating like Muay Thai into that when I was around like 13, 14. MMA soon after that, kind of just putting all the pieces together. Have my 3rd degree black belt in Shotokan karate. And yeah, the rest is history really from there. And I kind of just practice all these different disciplines. Karate was kind of my first initial start and background, but then it's kind of blossomed into me dabbling in and pursuing like all these different disciplines as well alongside of that.
Yeah. So do you how often do you train jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so lately it hasn't been as often as I would like with everything. I still train like twice a week right now. Beforehand, when I was like more heavily training it, like I was rolling probably like 4 to 6 times a week, even sometimes.
That's tough, man.
Tough for sure. So pretty frequently.
Okay. So purple belt, brown belt, black belt, blue belt.
Purple.
Purple?
Purple.
Okay.
Yeah, purple belt.
So I know purple belts. Once you get to that purple belt level, that's where, the blue belt is like, I've met some, pretty solid blue belts. But once you start getting at that purple belt level, you really see the differentiation between the whites. If you're at a solid school, the white belts and the white belts. Some of the blue belts, it's like, and especially depending on their size, some of the white belts, if they're physically strong enough and they have enough technique, they can get out. But once you get to that purple belt, it becomes hard.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the difference maker right there. Like there's definitely like, even just in blue belt itself, like there's just such a wide array of like how good a blue belt is. Like it is just so massive just in that one belt alone. But yeah, once you get to purple, it's like a whole different world. I feel like
you can tell the difference with the purple belts, because when I was rolling, my thing is we when I was in Virginia, I was training at a gym called Double Phoenix Jiu-Jitsu. And what we did was on Wednesdays, we had this thing called the endurance roll, where we did 1 hour full rolling, 6 minutes, and then it was 6 minutes, next person, 6 minutes, next person. So 1 minute, 1 round you're rolling with a white belt, next round you're rolling with a brown. At that time, the owner of the gym, he was under Lucas Lepery, and he was a brown belt, like 3-stripe brown belt. By the time I think I left that gym, he was like a black belt. He finally had gotten promoted, So no one in there at the time when I started was a black belt, But there were 3 brown belts, and then there were a couple purple belts, and then there were there were a lot of blue belts and white belts, and that's kind of probably how it is at most gyms. But yeah. Now, have you gotten any injuries because for me, I was rolling with this purple belt. His name was I forget the guy name. I don't know, I forget his name, but Lucas, that's what his name was. And he's trying to tall guy, kind of lanky, right? I was a little heavier than him, and we were doing the endurance roll. He was a new guy to the gym, right? So I'm a white belt, and he's looking at me like, because I had pretty good defense. After getting choked out enough, I said, okay, listen, unless it's an Americana and I'm just like on somebody and I have it and they're smaller, I'm not worried about trying to tap anybody out, right? Unless it's just there. I'm just trying to survive. So my defense started getting really good because I just got tired of getting chapped out so much, So, and then I was, I'm physically active and stuff like that, so I had a level of strength. However, this purple belt, he started getting a little frustrated because he's like, why can't I tap this guy out? So we're rolling, and most of the times I was getting in a lot of arm bars, and I didn't really like the arm bars. So I was pretty good at keeping my arms bent and my hands pretty much crossed so I wouldn't get my neck, someone get their hand over my neck or get that, they catch my arm, because a lot of times, whether you're trying to post or you're trying to, like, they're on top of you, your initial thing is you want to push them off instead of frame, So it's like,
Yep.
and then they catch your arm and it's done. So I said, okay, I can't do that. I got to get my frames up. So anyway, long story short, this guy ended up catching my arm with his legs. Like I said, he's tall, lanky guy. And he just bent, like flexed his legs, and I just in my arm, right? So ever since then, I can't fully hyperextend my arm. So I know I'm gonna need physical therapy for this because I'm like, man, I want full range of motion back. I don't get that 180. I might get like 160, you know,
Wow. Yeah.
without pain, you know. But have you ever gotten any injuries with the jujitsu?
No. Yeah, nothing seriously, thankfully. Like, knock on wood here. Like, nothing serious. I've been choked out like a
Oh
few
yeah.
times, but like I mean nothing serious other than that. Like I've gotten minor tweaks here and
Okay.
there, but like everyone, you know, even with like all my striking arts and like you know I competed like competitively for about 12 years in like
Oh
kickboxing
nice.
and like and even with that, thankfully I didn't really get seriously injured in that sport either. Like I mean I've been you know TKO'd a few times. Like I've been, you know, knocked down like a good amount of times, etc. But like nothing's seriously injured came from that, thankfully, so far. So you know,
Wow.
can't.
That's awesome, man. So I'm curious, how do you think the martial arts, if anything, how do you think that plays into kind of what you're doing now, with you being so young, going through an accelerated program, man? 2.5 years, that's extremely fast for, you know, anyone who doesn't know that. You know, I was at St. Augustine, and that was 2.7 years, which was an accelerated program. I ended up just leaving the program, man, because it was too fast for me to go to a 3-year one.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
how do you think that martial arts, or if do you think it had effect in whether it's discipline, mental resilience? You know, do you think those some of those intangible skills that you probably learned during martial arts carried over to your fitness transformation and to your school?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of credit to give towards you know, thankfully my parents putting me in martial arts at like such a young age, like literally like as soon as I could like comprehend what sports
Mm.
were and like, you know, be active, it was like, okay, you're doing this thing. And I have a lot to credit to that because I feel like one, it's given me obviously the discipline that kind of goes along with that. Anyone who's done martial arts or even just knows about it, like there's a lot of discipline that goes into it, especially at a young age and competing for over a decade and me doing it that way. Um, I just had to be a very disciplined kid growing up, and that like over like 15 years plus of like doing that, like that all that 100% carried into when I got into fitness and, you know, went to the gym consistently and put in the work and effort to build the physical transformation and like body that I have. And same thing with getting into school and like really pursuing my applications hard, like early on in school. And then same thing with, you know, pushing through PT school in this accelerated program. And yeah, it is really difficult. And I think another part of that too is, you know, ever since when I started martial arts at 4, my instructor, like we would always class motto that we would say at the end of every class. And I, when I was like 4 through like 12, I thought it was like the corniest thing ever. But like but I would say it at the end of every class, which was like, always do your best, never give up, and always do your best, never give up, and stay positive. And it was like something where it was like I like never I never really realized like how much that truly like ingrained into me until like I got older and I realized like oh like I had this like ingrained into me from such a young age that I need to always like work hard. I need to always show up and do my best and serve others when the opportunity presents itself. And that just truthfully carried into like everything I've done so far. And like I mean I probably would not be the same person that I am right now and have accomplished what I've accomplished so far if I didn't have that background to begin with. So, I mean, I have a lot to thank for that, I'd say.
Yeah, man, that's awesome because pretty much anybody who has been really involved in the level of martial arts, man, you ask them that question, most of them say that exact same thing, you know, and that's something I kind of wish my parents, you know, my parents were a little, particularly my mom was a little bit more on the protective side, you know, she didn't want us getting hit and all that type of stuff, you know, but when I got older, outside of just being able to defend yourself, I started to realize the mental benefits that it had, especially with jujitsu. Because initially, when I was going to start training, I was training Muay Thai,
Mm-hmm.
which I still
Mm-hmm.
train a little bit as well. But with the jujitsu, I had the guy at the front desk of the gym that I was training at. He was like, "Man, yeah, Muay Thai is cool, do that." He said, "But bro, you have to check out the jujitsu." And I'm like, I mean, I'm here for Muay Thai, striking and kicking. It's like, who cares about
Yeah.
grappling, It's like,
Right.
who's
Yeah.
rolling
That's it.
around on the floor, you
Yeah.
know? And then
Yeah.
he was like, "Man, you got to give it one try." Man, I tried that class once, and when I say I legitimately was trying not to get tapped out, like with my all my might, and people were still just whoop,
Yep.
chokehold, armbar, boom. I said, "Okay, this is
Yeah.
ridiculous."
It humbles you real quick, and you
Humbling,
real.
humbling experience. So after that, I said, "Man, I gotta train this." And ever since then, I've been on and off, not as consistent because, like I said, I've been jumping around. I've lived in 3 different states in the last 3 years. So but now I'm gonna be settled down, and I gotta find one in Michigan. So yeah, this is
Yeah.
cool, man. I didn't realize you were into martial arts. Now, do you keep up with the UFC and all of that?
I do. Yeah. 100%.
Okay,
Yeah. Huge fan.
okay, sweet, man. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
now I'm interested because I know you had some of this stuff, like the morals and some of the
Mm-hmm.
mantras that you were pretty much told when you were doing the martial arts ingrained in you at a young age. But I looked at that physical transformation that you made on your page, man, and I'll say, man, and for people who don't work out, that was pretty impressive. One, how long did that take? And then
Uh-huh.
two, um, what kind of mental switch did you have to make? Because I believe everything starts in here. The channel's
Yeah.
called Mentality ID. I believe your mentality identifies kind of who you are and can really set the bar for how high you go or how kind of low you kind of stay. So,
Mhm.
what what mental shift, what started going on in your head in order for you to
Mhm.
make that transition like that, man? Because that was impressive. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Yeah, that the transformation you're referring to, that was a 1 year transformation that I made. And and when I say that to a lot of people, especially when my business revolves around a lot of that, and I'm posting about that all the time, I always get the same answer. That it's just like, or a question that is always just like, how the hell like are you able to dedicate something to this like so hard that you're able to get this done like a year? Like that is crazy. Like a lot of people train for multiple years, and like I mean, don't even get nearly as far as they want to get to, right? In this whole endeavor of physical fitness, bodybuilding, whatever you want to call it. And, I think mindset for sure is like a huge part of it. I'd say it's pretty much all of it for the most part, other than the initial showing up. But, I'd say for me, like the switch really came, like initially started devoting myself to it because it was out of desperation almost, because it was like, I was just in such a bad place just mentally with like everything that was going on in my life at the time, which was when I was starting undergrad, got out of like a really bad breakup, like long-term relationship, kind of was lost in direction of like where I even wanted to go with like life at
Yeah.
that time, like many 18-year-olds are. And I was just like, and I just didn't know what to do with myself. And the gym just ended up being outlets for me. And to actually continue on for not only that, just that year, but at this point, lifting for 5, 6 plus years now, it's like, I think the mental shift was literally just me initially just making the decision that I am no longer going to be this person, and I am going to act like this new identity of myself, and
Mm.
I'm going to create this person. Like I know I'm not this person right now, but I'm going to become this person, and in order to become this person, these are the character traits I need to adopt, and I just need to live like this every single day till that person I'm trying to become ends up becoming my new reality. So, and there's a lot I've learned since then, and a lot of that carries into business. I'd argue, like for me, even with like business stuff, like I like a lot of this mindset stuff carries into that even more so. And I've had some of my biggest mental breakthroughs just through business alone, even past fitness. But
Yeah.
with the fitness transformation, it was like
Hmm.
me making that decision, making that declaration to myself, and then from there acting in accordance to that, because I did a lot of personal and self-development at that time as well when I was getting into it. And I realized that everything's shaped by your own self-identity. And I realized that my self-identity was not congruent with the beliefs I had and where I wanted to be at that time. And that ultimately is going to act as the governor of your life and dictate where it is you are and where it is you're going to eventually get to. Because if your beliefs aren't shaping up to the person you actually want to be, you're never going to exceed that, no matter how hard you work. You're always going to fall back to your baseline. And I needed to change that. And that came with a lot of different things I did. But, I think it ultimately just started with that, mental switch that I made of making that declaration to myself and almost breaking that switch, so I never go back to that person that I once was again. And I just act in accordance with these beliefs that I know I needed to act in accordance with on a day-to-day basis, till that eventually did become my new reality. And then I had other struggles and issues that came up, and then I needed to shift into a new person. I think that's the key. It's like you're never always just this one static person identity. You're always shifting and you're always becoming someone else. So it's not like, who am I now? It's, who am I becoming? It wasn't who am I at that time. It was, who am I becoming? Who am I trying to work towards? And just figuring out what those character traits were and just adopting them, even if I didn't have them at that time, but acting in accordance with those beliefs.
Wow. That's pretty powerful, man. Yeah, that's a whole that could be a whole segment right there. But I am curious, because I've heard people say things like that, and for me, act in accordance with the person you want to be, and give yourself permission to change. Because when you start acting different, I mean, look at it, you're going from a pretty skinny kid to, a pretty solid dude, and it's like. You're now working out. You're probably, meal prepping. You're going to the gym. You're moving differently because now you're going to the gym. People are like, "What are you doing, man? You never went to the gym." Like, how is that when people have an expectation from you? It's kind of like that kid in the class who was quiet, maybe in class. He probably wasn't really a quiet person, but maybe because of some insecurities, he was a little quiet, a little shy. And then all of a sudden he says, "Man, look, screw this. I want to talk. I want to express myself as a human being. I want to be able to just live, without creeping, tiptoeing around." So they start talking, and people are like, "What are you doing, man? You're not a talker.
Yeah.
You're the quiet kid in the corner. Shut up."
Yeah.
How did that work for you? Because yeah.
I had a lot of that same thing happen to me. And anyone who's listening to this who's gone through either physical transformation or has just gotten more into wanting to stay more physically fit or get more physically fit and like devote more time to their health has definitely felt this in some way, shape, or form. Like, it just happens to everyone. And it's so common. And I hear this from even my own personal fitness clients all the time when they start with me, because this happens to everyone. And it happened to me. And, I got a lot of that, like, oh, like, why are you going to the gym this many times a week? Why are you like weighing out your food? Why are you like meal prepping? Like, why are you trying to like, and I had to realize, one, it is not like, it is not important for me to have other people understand my goals. It is only important for me to understand them. And it is not my responsibility to try to get other people to understand them. And that was like the first thing I had to realize. And then the second thing was, with the whole acting in accordance with who you're trying to become, I had like, one of the many things I did was like to help solidify me in like, standing my ground and not like just listening to what everyone else was saying and keeping in what I knew my truth was. Like every single, like when I was initially setting my goal for, like the transformation I wanted to make and what I wanted to achieve, like it was not just like, here's the specific goal, make it measurable, like SMART goals, everyone knows that. Like, yeah, I did that. And I had a specific body fat and weight that I wanted to get to and type of person I wanted to look like. And I made it specific and all that good stuff. But in addition to that, I also made it clear who was the type of person I wanted to become. And as an example, what I commonly will tell a lot of my clients, and this is what I did myself, was I, made it clear, like, okay, this is my specific goal. I want to get here. This is the process I'm going to be doing and how I'm going to get there. That's all said and good. A lot of people do that, but the step they skipped is the actual identity filling part. And what I personally did, and I reminded myself of this every single day, was I made a declaration. I was like, I am the type of person who ... fill in the blank. I am the type of person who goes to the gym 3 times a week and preps all his meals. I'm the type of person who blah, 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 doesn't miss a workout and shows up on time to every cardio class, whatever that is. And I reminded myself of that every single morning, every single day. So even when I'm getting all these opinions and all these inputs and everyone's saying their opinions at me, it was hard, but I could always come back to that goal, that why, and who I'm trying to become, and that statement, if you will, of like the person I'm trying to become. And it almost became like my mantra that I like held on to the entire time, to not get swayed by like other people's opinions and like, you know, thoughts and who they wanted me to be like. So I could not fit into their predetermined boxes, and I could grow out of mine and actually fulfill new.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. So let me ask you this. So you're going through and you're doing what you're doing. You wake up one day and let's say you're very consistent and then you fall off a little bit. On those days, right? And when you talked about becoming the person that, like, acting like the person you wanted to become, is this something that you were literally writing down? Like, you wrote down the kind of man you wanted to be and then proceeded to act in that way? Or is it you had a picture of it in your head and then you proceeded? That's the first question. And then the second question is, you're going along, consistent. Boom, you have a bad day. What do you do to re-up on those days? Are you still writing stuff down consistently, or is it, you know what, this is a bad day, I didn't do what I needed to do, scrap it, and then keep it pushing?
Yeah. So to your first question, I actually did write it down. I have like and I still do this to this day. Like I have like a ritual that I do every single day where, like I have like a state story strategy morning routine, I call it. In short, like one of the aspects of that is literally what you're talking about, where I will every morning write down, you know, the character traits and the beliefs that of the man that I'm trying to become. And I write that down every day. And I feel like it's powerful for me just because it helps to serve as almost my anchor every single morning and my reminder of like what I'm doing this for and like why I'm doing this and who I'm trying to be in this process. And it just helps keep me anchored to that process every single morning, because I'm not always going to be motivated or even disciplined and have the willpower to commit to that every morning. But if I remind myself, like, hey, this is the type of person you're becoming, Kev. Like you need to act in accordance to this. It helps me to stay on that path. And I also realize that, you know, in order for me to act in accordance to my beliefs and become that person, that comes from keeping the truths that I have and set for myself and the goals that I set for myself. Because the moment I start breaking my own promises, that's the moment that I'm no longer going to have that belief. I'm no longer going to be in congruence with that person I'm trying to become. So I made it a priority that I will not skip out on or act in congruence with that. And I will make sure that I'm fulfilling the things I need to do every day so I can be that person and keep with these promises I'm making to myself. And that ties into your second question, where there were days that didn't happen and I fell off the wagon and I didn't hit the mark or accomplish the things I needed to do that day, or had streaks of those days. And, you know, yes, I would still continue doing the whole morning ritual and the writing down of all that stuff because it was my anchor and it served as importance. But there were days I fell off. And there are two things to that. One thing would be, I actually had another process I used to kind of keep those days to a minimum, but also remind myself that it's okay if those days happen. And I got this from like Seinfeld, from a story I heard about him and the whole process with what he did as a comedian, kind of growing into the space. But I adopted this for myself, where I would have like a calendar out, and every single day that I kind of stuck to the promises I made, there would be a little check on that calendar. And my whole goal, whatever big goal I had, put that to the side. My only focus was keep the streak alive, don't let it die. And I would have this visual reminder to myself every single day. So at the end of every single day, I see that on my wall, and it's like I have to go to bed knowing I either did it or just let that streak die every single day. And that kept me going for a very, very, very long time, where I just kept that chain going and going and going, because once I kept stacking those like check marks, like I did not want to let that stop. And
It's
I
momentum.
just kept stacking. Yeah, it's momentum. I just kept stacking those checks on checks on checks. And there were days where I fell off, but that's okay, because we're all human. That's going to happen. And I would tell myself, it's okay. You're human. Stuff happens. You just have to get up and get right back to it. And I gave myself a rule. I like determined like the 2-day rule where like I will never go more than like 1 day in a row of like falling off. So like if I fell off 1 day, I have to get back onto the next day. Like I cannot essentially fail, quote unquote, 2 days in a row. And by doing that, it ensured me that even if I was falling off on the process, which is normal and it happens, I'm essentially like, for example, finishing out the month with like a minimum of an 80% consistency level, which consistency over perfection is the name of the game at the end of the day. And if I'm 80% consistent, even if I'm falling off 20% of the time, at the end of it, I'm still going to be much, much, much further along, and I'll actually get to my goal versus like trying to just aim for perfection every day and then getting upset at myself if like I fell off like a couple days or something like that in the month. So those are kind of things that I did from a mental standpoint to just like be okay with it, but also to try and prevent that from even happening like in the first place.
Right. That's interesting because what you said, and I'm not sure if you've heard of this book, but I read it and it was funny. They actually gave that exact same rule. It was called Atomic Habits by James Clear.
I've read the book like a while back. I didn't even remember that was an example they used. But yeah, I read the book like a while back.
Yeah, that's a good because it reminded me of you saying, what he was saying, where like the habit stacking, and one thing is, you might have those days where you do fall off, but if you do fall off, you never let yourself go 2 days. You know what I'm saying? With that, because that 2 turns into 3, turns into 4, turns into a month, turns into 2 years, turns into, and then you're just like, you look up, you're like, oh my goodness, what happened? Man, this is awesome. Oh, I know this could. I'm not gonna take a crazy amount of your time, but I know this interview could go long. This conversation rather. So, let me ask you this. Tell us just a little bit about, a little bit more about your online training business and how you balance that, or how does this is even a better question. How does that balance look for you? Because I think balance is relative. People say, hey, we want to have a balanced life. Well, if you're going to be the top 1% of person, balance might look a little bit different, for you. And even if you're in PT school, right, you look at the amount of people getting into PT school, that's one thing. But then the amount of people working in PT school, that's another thing. But then the amount of people working in PT school for their own business, that's a whole other thing. So you start moving up this kind of like percentile. How does that balance at the percentile that you're at look like?
Yeah. So first starting with like about my online business in general. So again, like I kind of said in the beginning, like I own an online fitness coaching business called PTP Systems, where we work with busy professionals and helping them lose 20 plus pounds, build muscle, and attain their dream physique without being on restrictive diets, doing tons of cardio, and regardless of whether they are injured or coming back from an injury or pain. That is what I do on a daily basis with my business. I started this when I literally started the business when I started PT school. And then it's grown to this point. I'm an open book. So I currently, we do around like 8 to 10K a month in revenue right now with the business. And right now, as far as like what that balance looks like on a day-to-day basis, because at this point it's an operation. And at this point, right, I have members, I have, a full roster of clients, et cetera. I'm glad you framed it in that way because, when I talk to people, it's like, yeah, my balance is not going to look like what you might term as like traditionally balanced. I would say I do a decent job at it. I don't consider it balance. Like for me, I consider it work-life integration. That is how I look at it. And yeah, for me doing this whole thing and then also being in PT school, it's a grind. I'm working, most days of the week. I will try to take a day off every single week, typically just to have to myself because I need that for my mental sanity. But other than that, my days are very stacked and are very busy. And it's pretty much just nonstop, like 12 to 16, sometimes even 18-hour days when it comes down to it in a busy season on a daily basis. But I kind of just know that's the season I'm in. That's kind of the growth season I'm in. That's kind of what it takes, especially until I'm done PT school here in a few short months. So that's kind of what it's been like. It's kind of fluxed and flowed differently when I started my business to how it looks now. Like I'm probably working more now and doing more things combined with like when I started this, like, initial first year of like PT school, but it's always been a balancing act just between like being ruthless in my prioritization, my time management, scheduling things out like by every by like every 30-minute slot on my Google Calendar, and I still do that to this day. Like, and just being incredibly like ruthless with my prioritization, my time management, so I could fit, my 30 to 40 hours of class and studying and or clinical in a week, combined with my 20 to 30 hours or so of like business that I have to run in a given week. So I mean, so long story short, like that's kind of what it looks like for me. Like, some might term it unbalanced, but it's work-life integration. That's just what it takes me to kind of do what I'm doing and juggle the balls in the air that I have right now with this.
Yeah, that's a lot. So with your path, I'm curious. You've already started to turn a profit and revenue with your path that you're going on now of entrepreneurship. You're soon going to graduate and get this DPT. Of course, I know a lot of people they're ready to just jump into some type of clinic. And I know you said you wanted to do sports medicine, some type of outpatient clinic, or something like that. How does that look for you? Because you've taken that entrepreneur route, do you drop, maybe not totally drop it, but do you slow down on the business and do that and start working for somebody, in a clinical setting, to get your clinical skills up? Or do you continue what you're doing and really start going down that entrepreneurial path even more? And if you do that, how does that look in terms of your experience, cultivating that experience?
Yeah, it's definitely the latter. Once I realized this was a possibility when I started this back at this PT school, I always joke around with a couple of my friends who like know very closely what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and everything. But I always joke that I'm like, yeah, my long-term play is not to be a working clinician. Like my long-term play, I don't even consider it a long-term play anymore. And my short-term play, because I'm graduating in a few short months here, is to continue doing what I'm doing and just grow it and scale it to an even bigger level. Once I got a taste of like what this could be like, and the time and mostly the time freedom / like location freedom I can have with this, and fulfillment that I get from this as well. I was like, you know what, like this is just the path I want to take. This is what I want to do. And being in the grateful spot where I know other people, such as, for example, like Dr. Steffi Cohen, who built hybrid performance method while she was in PT school, built it to like multiple six figures, and literally just went straight into that when she was done PT school. Miami, like I was like, you know what, like and I've talked to her about this. I've talked to other people who've done a similar thing, and I'm like, you know what, like this is just what I want to do, and like I'm just gonna pursue this full force. And that's why I pursued it as hard as I've pursued it during PT school, is because I knew this was gonna be my path into what I really wanted to create with like my life, like once I was done PT school. And like everything I do in PT school, from being a better clinician standpoint, it still falls under what I'm gonna do with this, entrepreneur pursuit. Again, like a lot of the skills I learned in PT school fall under what I do as a coach, as with fitness coaching, and even with the online rehab and things that we'll do, and I'll start doing more of when I'm done PT school with the clients and patients that I work with. But it's going to be in this new light, if you will, this different endeavor. It's not going to be in the traditional sense. And, that's kind of been my whole thing. Like, I just did not want to do the whole traditional method of, graduating PT school, working in a clinic, treating one-on-one or whatever in a clinic setting. Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely needed. But that just wasn't for me. And once I got a taste of what that could be like, I knew that wasn't for me. And like, I knew like this is the thing that I'm gravitated more towards and that I need to pursue.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I'm very similar to you in that regard. A lot of people ask me, even like when I'm doing this platform, I'm like, guys, I don't, I mean, I know you guys, a lot of people want to just go to school, become a PT, and sell off into the sunset. I mean, when I tell people, it's like I look at this as a leveraging opportunity, the degree, because even if you don't use it, having that doctor in front of your name in this society does mean something. Titles are what they are. But when you graduate, because I know right now it's probably you're not doing any type of billing, insurance, or whatever, because you're not a physical therapist yet. How do you now merge that physical activity and merge it into clinical so you can start billing with insurance? Or do you see yourself just doing kind of still more the cash base, have this prices for, rehab stuff, and then that price is for, like personal training, just fitness stuff.
Yeah, I'm not I'm not touching insurance with a 10-foot like
Okay.
I very very comfortable with the way I kind of operate things right
Okay.
now and the
Okay.
points I sell things at. Again, everything I do is high ticket fitness coaching. I am very happy with the price points and the coaching packages I sell things at right now.
Yeah.
So my whole thing is keeping a cash pay, and yeah,
Yeah.
having rehab things like that, be its own separate tier, its own separate cash pay tier, if you will, and continuing to sell those services out of pocket like that, alongside the fitness coaching. That's just because that's just what I prefer. Again, nothing wrong with the other way of doing things. I just don't want to mess with that, especially when I've already had all this experience in this arena.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not going to change it. That's
Yeah.
kind of the thing.
I think that's a lot of people's. I know for me, that's a lot of that insurance, man. Oh
Hmm.
boy, I hear about it. I've looked into it a little bit. It's like this stuff can get so political. It's like, oof. But
Yep.
it is health. That's healthcare for you. So, what habits would you say, with everything that you're doing, the success that you've had, you're about to finish PT school, you're young, you're ambitious, you're well spoken. What success? What habits? What I would say maybe the top two habits.
Hmm.
Do you think were the most important for getting you to this point where you are now? And I know this is going to vary from person to person if I ask them different questions. But what habits that you possess do you think got you to where you are right now?
Yeah, I think for me, what's two main habits are, one, and I think like, and these are gonna, to everyone listening, like this is gonna sound like a duh, like no brainer, but like, look, like there's a reason it's a duh, no brainer. It's because most people just don't implement it, which is one, uh, my ability to manage my time very effectively and put first things first. And yeah, you might listen to that and be like, well, yeah, duh. Like, I need to manage my time. I know I'm in PT school. Like, we're busy. And put first things first, prioritize. Yeah. But it's like, you don't realize how important that is until you try to do this. And, I think my ability to, one, be consistently ruthless with my time management so I can balance, quote unquote, everything I need to in a given week and in a given month and in a given yearly time span. But then, two, on top of that, be able to put first things first with also being able to, and I think this is a second habit that kind of links into this, which is uh, not just the work ethic component of it, but my ability to have deep work when I'm in this grind mode of having like this work on a day-to-day basis and managing my time. Because it's one thing to be like, oh, I'm going to do all these things and try to balance all these things and manage my time. It's another thing to be like, okay, let's manage our time effectively and consistently, but also when I'm working on one thing, I'm working on one thing and like that is it. And I am having purely deep work focused time on that one thing, or I'm studying this one thing, and that is all I'm doing. I'm not checking my phone. I am not going on my laptop. I am not talking to someone else like when I'm like doing this thing. Like, no. And like I think my ability to do that, there's a lot of like science that goes along with that. But I think
Right.
my ability to, put first things first consistently and also have the deep work time to go along with that on a consistent basis, to stay disciplined to that, really just pays dividends over time because time compounds. And
Yeah.
this wasn't something that I built over a month or over even a year. And it was just the consistent day in and day out execution of hitting the grindstone on these things that kind of added up to that cumulative effect. And me being able to, when I start PT school, for example, and I start class like during year two at like 9 a.m. and I'm up at like 4:30, for example, I know like from like 5 till like 9, that is my time to put my head down and like, for example, just focus purely on the most important needle moving tasks that I needed to do in my business that day, and being able to just execute on those tasks day-to-day basis consistently, day in day out, 1% better every day, that whole time span until I got to that point. Because this right now, which yeah, I'm happy with what I've built, but there's a lot further that I want to go with that. That was done over getting 1% better over the past like 4+ years of like doing this thing.
Right.
So I'd say the most important thing for me was just the whole cliche of just doing the things consistently, having the work ethic and discipline to go along with that time management, and being able to focus when focus is most important, because I feel like focus is just a thing that is lacking in so many people with what they're pursuing. Being able to just focus on one thing and one path to where they want to get to and not get distracted. I'd say those are all things that kind of just added up into this.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on in the society with the technology and everything like that. And it sounds like you probably have read the book Deep Work by Kyle Newport.
Yeah.
You know, and then the compound effect, it also sounds like you've made kind of reference to that. Those are really two important. I know compounding. I will say that compounding and that deep work, like you were saying, I haven't read the book, but I know the general gist of kind of what he was talking about. I have read his book though, How to Get how to become a straight A student, I think.
Yeah, I've read that too.
Yeah, I read that before coming to PT school because I was scared out of my mind. Well, the first time I was going to PT school, because my story is kind of crazy. This is my third PT school that I've been on. You know, whole different story, whole different day. But last question. What is your definition of fulfillment?
hmm Yeah, I think my definition of fulfillment is being able to do what I want, when I want, in a way that serves other people and what I'm passionate about. I think when I'm able to combine all those things together, that is what ultimately gets me fulfillment, because I need to, one, have the piece of, am I doing something I'm passionate about that also serves a purpose in helping people in that way, right? Because I think for me personally, I get fulfillment from that one aspect of, which is why I got into PT to begin with, and why I got interested in PT to begin with. It's like, okay, I'm going to serve people in a way doing something that I'm passionate about and like have an interest in. That was like piece number one. But then the other two pieces, which is where the entrepreneurial spirit kind of came into play, with where I was seeking out fulfillment from, is being able to do what I want with that when I want it. And that is ultimately why I pursued this path to begin with, because I knew in the traditional sense I wasn't going to get that. And for me to actually have true fulfillment, which is checking all those boxes for me, the PT is great and all, and I'm glad I chose this career field, but I wouldn't be able to get the what I want, when I want piece, unless I kind of pursued the entrepreneurial endeavor and took things into my own hands and just created my own path and like reality for myself. That way I am doing what I'm passionate about and serving others in that process while doing what I want to do when I want to do it, and having that time freedom, because ultimately that is like one of the most important things to me personally, and like how I value success and like fulfillment. So I'd say like as long as I'm checking all those boxes, like that is what fulfillment is to me at the end of the day.
I agree, man. That freedom is something. I think that leads a lot of people to want to start taking that entrepreneurial path, because people don't realize, man, you know, you're either working to pursue your own or build your own dreams, or, you know, you're working to build someone else's. So, you know, with that, you know, Kevin, I really appreciate this conversation. We're going to have to do another one of these, because there's so many other questions we got in the MMA, but there's so many other questions I know I could ask, but, you know, I really appreciate your time. I'll just give you the last word, any last thoughts, and then, you know, we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you bringing it on, man. Like, and I think for everyone listening to this, you know, regardless of where you are, where you're at, you know, if you have the inkling that like the traditional path isn't for you, or you have the inkling or desire that like, or burning passion that, hey, you know, I like what I'm doing, but I know I'm meant for so much more. Understand that having that thought is an indicator in itself that you are meant for so much more. And to two, sit with that, maybe journal on it or something, write it down, and actually lean into that, and figure out what you need to do to pursue that. Maybe that is making a connection that you needed to make, reaching out to someone that you know is doing the thing you want to be doing, and figuring out how you can start that path towards doing it yourself. And, you know, actually leaning into it, understand that if it's something you want to do, there's probably someone out there that's also doing it on like a larger scale. And all you need to do is find that quote unquote successful person, if you want to call them that, and pick their brain, learn from them, and just pursue what actually lights your fire, and understand that you have that, you know, dream in you for a reason, and to just pursue that and not like let that fire burn out. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, again, you can just find me on Instagram, DocKevFit, all lowercase. reach out to me anytime. Always happy to connect. And if you ever have questions on like business or anything like that, or you're a PT student yourself, I always love talking to other students. So just feel free to hit me up whenever.
Sweet, sweet. Guys, Kevin, pronounce your last name for me one more time. Hamidi. Hamidi. Excuse me. Kevin Hamidi, guys. Yeah. And we will see you guys in the next conversation. We are signing out.